When I say it's time to go home, then you say, yay, okay. Yeah, I know, right, Tom? I appreciate that. So I appreciate you inviting me up here on a non-Trump visit week. I appreciate it. I understand it was a madhouse around here whenever that big convocation has those big name people, whoever they happen to be. Bernie drew a big crowd, and so I'm just glad I didn't have to deal with all of that. I will ask though, I drove through Evergreen. They were hit by a tornado, and so if you are a praying person, I'd ask that you remember those people down in that community, and some of the firehouses around are taking up donations, canned foods and water and diapers and things like that. If you've seen the pictures on television of places out in Oklahoma or whatever, that's what it looked like when I came through. I was just in shock at the damage that just that 45 seconds caused. So anyway. I just thought I could make mention of those folks that are struggling through. Our life seems to be so busy, and then theirs was literally turned upside down. But I appreciate you giving up your Friday afternoon to be here. I promise to have you out of here before 7. It should work out just fine. Yeah, some of them are leaving right now, I can tell. But I don't know about you, but I have trouble sometimes communicating with people. Actually, I communicate very well. They just don't listen. That's what it is. And in fact, they listen, but they don't hear a lot of times. And if you have a spouse who sits in a recliner with a remote control, you might understand what selective hearing is all about. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about communication and how it sometimes just messes up, even when we are trying to do it correctly. I've been involved with teaching a long time, and I know this. I'm not very good at it, and it changes day to day. And my students change day to day. In fact, the staff that I work with changes day to day. And so I have to learn every day how to communicate with people brand new. And I hope maybe we can look at some of the processes behind that today and do it kind of in a lighthearted way in which we accidentally learn something and maybe laugh a little bit along the way. So this is communication skills for the heart of listening. And so I want to go ahead and just get right into it. Does that look familiar to any of you? Do you have a student like that? Well, for the very first time, about a week and a half ago, I had a young man who not just fell asleep in class, but stayed asleep in class. And when we packed up to leave, he was still asleep. And I turned the lights off and shut the door. He has not been back to class since. And it's probably a wise choice on his part. But sometimes, as good as I think I am in front of a class, I just put him to sleep. And I need to work on that, I guess. And I began to think about this one time when we were sitting in church. I was sitting in church, and if you are churchgoers, occasionally you look around and you'll see somebody nodding a little bit. And they're doing that I'm trying to stay awake thing, and every once in a while, they might doze and then look up and look around to see who saw them. Well, we were sitting in there one Sunday, and the preacher was giving everybody what for, because we're all a bunch of sinners in there, And a guy on the front row, actually second row, was laid back with his head on the back of the pew, snoring loudly. I mean, not just like a little bit of sleep. He was out. And his wife was right beside him, stoic, arms folded, looking straight ahead at the minister. And it got to be kind of distracting. When people are looking around, and finally the minister said, "Are you going to wake him up?" And she said, "I didn't put him to sleep." So do you know anybody that's hard of listening? You'll find them here and there. This is where I call home, Charlotte County right here. So hello from Southside, Virginia. And I would just want you to know we grew up poor at home. It was tough. But it wasn't nearly as bad as my mama putting them little dresses on me when I was a kid. Because we couldn't afford clothes like that. We were poor growing up. Now, I was telling people the other day, I mean, literally, my daddy ran a bottling company down in the woods. Because we had to supplement. We had to supplement everything. I don't know what y'all call it up here, but that's what we call it. We had to supplement our income that way. It's a lot easier to put corn in a jar than sell it in a bag, you know. And so we supplemented our income that way. And he had a tendency of naming all these little batches that he made. He would give them a little name. And so one day, a couple of my buddies and I, we had to stand near the edge of the woods, you know, just to look and make sure nobody that wasn't supposed to come came. And so he's coming out of the woods. My dad is one day whistling. I said, Dad, how was it? He says, a great batch down there today. Just corked it off. I said, good. What'd you name this batch, Daddy? He said, Summertime. I said, Summertime? Why'd you do that? He said, because 2 drinks and school is out, baby. So we were good Christian people now. We just sold it. We didn't drink it. All right? So, and my mama took in washing. All right? Y'all probably know, you're too young to know what that is. But, you know, we would take in other people's clothes. But we wouldn't give them back. I go to school, somebody said, I got a shirt just like that. Oh, no, you don't. So it's kind of tough down there growing up. But listen, before we get going, I had to stick this little thing about a Harvard study in here, in case there's an administrator in here somewhere. Because I want them to think I know what I'm talking about. So if you quote something from Harvard, it's like, oh, that's good. And see, they'll leave now. Because they see Harvard's written in there, they'll take on off. Because they think this is going to be all right. So Harvard did a little study. And what they asked participants to do was to identify a shape that represents you as a communicator. Okay? And so they said that each shape will determine some communication characteristics that you may have. So I'm going to put the shapes up here, and I'm going to ask you at your table to first self-identify a shape that you think represents you as the communicator that you are when you're communicating with someone else. So the shapes will show up here, and you just choose one that you think represents you. And once you've done that, I would like for you to just take 45 or 58 seconds at your table and talk to each other about why you chose that shape as representing the traits you have as a communicator. All right? And then I'll go back over what the Harvard research says about those shapes, just kind of fill that in. So you go ahead and choose one, and then talk among yourselves, or act like you like each other for about 45 seconds. All right? Yeah, that's all I know, right? What you got? All of you, sir. And how about you, Dave? Oh, yeah? Okay. Right. Did you read this before? Y'all get one? What you got, Mark? Sir? What is that? I got you, so. Sir? But all three of you. Why?
You've got information about
If you pay attention, you do. Yeah. Yes, that's right. sir. Yes, sir. So, anybody here outside? Got one, sir. All right, if I can get you back focused up here just a moment, all right? If I can get you focused just a moment. I'm just going to ask for a volunteer if somebody would like to say, I'm this one and why. This would be the time. You would?
I'm a triangle.
All right.
I like to make points.
You like to make points. And you get the first prize. Mr. Lovers right there for volunteering first. All right? Oh, me? And which one were you?
I'm the cross.
Tell us why.
I cover all the bases.
Cover all the bases. Okay. So we go straight to the point. We cover all the bases. Yes, ma'am.
I also was a triangle because I listened to my point of view, their point of view, and then we come to a compromise.
Oh, aren't you something? I don't compromise. It's just my point of view, right? When I was growing up, my dad would say, because I said so. So when I got children, because I said so. Now, let me just tell you a little bit. So what the Harvard research indicated here was people who identified kind of with the square would give you, if you were in a conversation with them and you had asked them a specific kind of question about something, they would give you 3 or 4 facts kind of to support their answer. They don't go into a lot of detail, but they give you enough to kind of, for you to figure out, okay, what's happening, all right? However, if you get this person, the plus person, they give you way more than you ever asked for when they talk.
Yes.
I mean, they just talk, and you're sitting there trying to figure out the answer to the question that you asked them, because they are wandering around somewhere. And I'll tell you, over near where I live is a little community called Victoria. It's got about 400 or 500 people live in it. But it's like every little hole-in-the-wall place. They got a fabulous restaurant there. And I wasn't exactly sure where it was, but I had about an hour and a half one day that I was going to eat lunch, and I wanted to go to that place. So I pulled up to the service station where a truck was with farm use tags, because I figured he's got to be local, right? So I got out the truck and I saw him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, but I'm looking for the Depot restaurant. Can you tell me how to get there?" "Oh, yes, it is great food they got there. You're going to love it." My wife and I go Sundays after church. I get the meatloaf all the time. I said, "That's wonderful, meatloaf." "Oh, well, they don't have meatloaf today. That's only on Sundays." I said, "Okay, well, I'm sure they got good food today." He said, "Yeah, they got some great food." And I said, "Now, I only got about an hour. Could you tell me how to get there?" And he said, "Well, you got to go down the road right here and turn by that closed-up store." I said, "Okay, turn by the closed-up." Do I turn right or left when I turn by the closed-up store? And he said, "Well, you want to make a left." I said, "Okay, great. And then you go down to where the dump used to be and make a right." Okay? Now, I don't live over there, so I don't know where the dump used to be, okay? And so we get here on this conversation, and he tells me to go by the man's house. He's got the big pond in the front yard, and he and his grandchildren caught fish out the pond, and on and on and on. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just get a pack of naps here at the service station. So that's the kind of person that just you don't want to bump into if you're in a hurry, right? You just don't want to bump into, because these are the people that you meet in the hall when you say, "Hello, how you doing?" They tell you, right? When you're on your way somewhere else and you really don't want to know. When you're in the hall traveling, you want to meet these people, the triangle people. They're straight to the point, okay? "How you doing?" "Fine," and go on. Right? They don't tell you much of anything else, is what they're saying. It's straight to the point. You ask them, "Is it raining outside?" They might say yes, but they would neglect to tell you it's an 85-mile-an-hour wind. You know, they just give you the bare bone information in that. Okay. So how many of you knew the plus or admitted to being a plus? Who might? There's a few hands going up. All right. And how about the triangle? There's a few triangles around. Okay. And then the circle. How many of you identified as the circle? Oh, look at all of the circles here. And why did you choose the circle? Would you share that?
Sure, because when I communicate, especially with my
don't have the experience, not the age, it's the experience. All right, good. Yeah, that's right. Great. And who else was, where was another circle? Somebody? So, would you share?
Well, I like to have an open mind and see different perspectives and observe other possibilities instead of being narrow-minded.
Oh, okay.
That's what I interpret.
Well, the Harvard research would indicate that people who identify themselves as being circles are so preoccupied with the opposite sex that they don't hardly talk at all. No, I'm just kidding. What they do say is that you tend to be someone who is inclusive in a conversation, that you give and take in that conversation. And some people are better givers and takers in a conversation than others, is what they're talking about. It doesn't mean that any of these are wrong, it's just how your personality kind of fits into that. And so I don't even know how you think to do a study like this, but that's what they do. Okay, so if they study fruit flies with 6 wings, I guess they'll study this as well. Okay? So, you know, it's just how it goes. Now, sometimes communication, even when you try to get it correct, a lot of times it doesn't come out exactly like it should. Now, these are headlines, okay, that I want you to see. This one says, an Iraqi head seeks arms. Thinking, okay, let's think about that. Right. Now, I like this one. Miners refuse to work after death. Now, I will tell you right now, Southside Virginia Community College, when I die, I ain't working no more. Anymore. And how about this is right out of Lynchburg. Please begin campaign to run down jaywalkers. So be careful crossing the street this evening. A deaf mute gets new hearing and kill him. Somebody needs to proofread these headlines somewhere, right? There needs to be an editor on the job somewhere, all right? This one, how about this now? Experts say something went wrong in the check graph. Really? No. That's not a novel idea. Something went wrong. Man is fatally slain. I'm wondering, that's what I wanted to know. Could you be? And then blind woman gets new kidney from dad, she hadn't seen it. You know you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. 93% of all communication is nonverbal. You are well aware of that. You deal with it all the time. And these are just some of the ways in which we communicate nonverbally. You'll see eye contact, sounds, timing, facial expressions, all of the such. And the best thing I can tell you about this is that nonverbal communication is important, and I have learned a valuable lesson from my wife because she communicates that way quite a bit. I came home one day, and when you walk in that kitchen, in that back door, you walk in and there's a little kitchen table and stuff right here. Then you make a little turn and you're in the part where the stove and refrigerator and all that is. And so when I came in, I dropped my book bag on a little chair. We've been doing it forever. Set it right down on the chair. Turned around, and she was standing there in the middle of that kitchen floor with one hand on her hip like this, and that foot right there aimed in that direction, looking right at me. I know, you've seen that, right? And I know that because my mama used to stand like that when I was a kid, and I know that means stand still, we fixing to have a talk. And I thought, okay, and I knew I was safe. But if she'd have put this hand up, that's run, buddy, run right there, run. So I'm standing there. Now she said to me, I can't believe she even said, she said, don't you have something you ought to tell me? Look, the fact of the matter is this. It's probably a lot I ought to tell you. But I'm not owning up to anything until I know what direction we're headed. There ain't no need to get in trouble for something that you don't know about today, okay? Because my life is always on the edge of explosion, okay? And so, but we know people, when we see them, we can tell through their body language and through their style about what kind of mood they might be in or whether they feel like talking today or not. But students don't know that. Most young students don't pick up on those cues. And a lot of that has to do with that machine that they have. You know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. In fact, I see some of you taking notes on it now. So I appreciate that down there like this. Taking notes, so that's nice of you. But students don't understand how to interpret body language in the classroom anymore. They might find it very difficult to identify with an instructor who may be a little upset at the class because they don't understand some of the nonverbal cues that you and I recognize and have learned over the years. So we have to be careful with them. Now we're going to shut up and communicate. Now I got to tell you, I had the good fortune to go and do a presentation for the for State Farm insurance agents. They were having this big banquet dinner and they invited me to come, and I was the second person to speak. The first person actually got booed by the folks out there in the audience. And I was thinking, I got to go behind this guy got booed out there. I mean, this is crazy. And so when I got up, I was getting all the stuff to get up, and the guy was kind of like introducing everything, like did what Allison did. He got up and he was saying, you know, look, we got to do these things and these things. And two people started arguing right here. I mean, out loud arguing. They got in a fight. They got up and yelling at each other and pushed each other. And I'm thinking, what in the world kind of mess is this? I'm thinking, where is Jake from State Farm right now? This is crazy. And that guy got the microphone and yelled, shut up, sit down, we're going to communicate. What are you talking? I got to get up there behind a fight. And a guy that got booed. I don't know if I want to do that or not. But we get up there. Okay, we get up there, and I start doing the little thing. And every once in a while, they must have remembered that other fellow's speech because they started booing again. So I just remember what that was all about. Now, what I want you to see is sometimes some communication that we see out there is crazy. Like, for example, this one. An average person speaks 125 words a minute, okay? But the average person can hear about 300 words a minute. Now, if you're from New Jersey, you can kick along about 148, 150 words a minute. If you're down in lower Alabama, you're cruising in around 75, 80 words a minute, okay? So what happens to all of the other words? What happens to the other 200 words? Well, let me tell you what happens to them. You add them in. In fact, you're having a conversation in your head right now while you're listening to me. We do it all the time. And sometimes your conversation that you're having is more interesting than the one I'm having with you. So you're not really paying attention to me, or anybody else for that matter. It doesn't have to be me. And you're carrying on this little conversation because right now you might be thinking, golly, I can't believe I wasted my time to come here. Or I'm glad they had cookies. At least they had cookies to eat. Wonder what time we're going to get out of here. Golly, he's good looking. I don't know what else. You got all these little conversations going on in your head, right? It is possible that those conversations, along with what I say, kind of mix together. And you swear you heard what I said. And might even accuse me of saying something that I never even said. Now, I teach history. That's what I do. And it's boring stuff about a bunch of dead people. I understand that, okay? But I was in my class one day, and we were talking about James Madison, all right? James Madison is credited with being the father of the Constitution. He was the 4th president of the United States. His wife was Dolly. He was president during the War of 1812 when the White House got burned. He was instrumental in helping Virginia get on firm footing as a state. All right? I mean, he's a pretty important guy. So, James Madison was also, unlike Jefferson and Washington, where they were over 6 feet tall, he was not. He was relatively short for a man of that time period. He was around 5'4". He might have weighed 120 pounds. He had effeminate characteristics and a pretty high-pitched voice, but he had a very deep intellect. And so I was explaining all of these things to my students. And then when it came time for them to explain something back, you know, we do that sometimes. I had a student write, James Madison is considered to be the father of the United States Constitution. serving as 4th President of the United States, and the first openly homosexual president of the United States. So I circled the thing, put a big check mark on it, and said, please see me after class. Where'd you get this information? Because I've studied this stuff. I've never seen that before, but if you found some new evidence, I'm interested. So he comes up and we're talking. I said, look, you got all this right. I said, but where did that last statement where did that come from? He said, oh, you told me. I said, I didn't told you. Did I tell you that? Oh, yes, you did. I wrote it in my notes. I said, I did not say in this classroom those words. And he said, yes, you did. I wrote them down. And he had written it down in his notes. He had taken what I said, a feminine characteristic, shrilly voice, small in stature, made a big leap, right? And wrote it right down, okay? So sometimes, even when we're trying to get communication right, it messes up because we got all these things going on in our head right now, okay? Everything in there is getting twisted up. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I want to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to make a statement. I'd like you to fill in the blank, okay? If you would. And we'll do like 3 or 4 of them, and you just fill in the blank. But I'll tell you what, we'll do it, just yell it out all together, okay? So, let me see. I wear a hat on my head. Right, now you know how that works. I sleep in a bed. Good, good. Oh, I know. When you build a fire, the stuff comes out of the chimney is smoke, okay? Ain't got no money, I am broke. Let's see. A funny story, sometimes called a good, and the white of an egg is the perfect. You college graduates too, aren't you? Yeah, but it's my fault, isn't it? Because we were rhyming. Yeah, but I didn't say rhyme. I said fill in the blank. But we all get that way. We just get in that pattern and there it goes. Oh, your white of egg, it's a yolk. Okay, great. But my students don't recognize that either. They don't recognize that either. So how do I then, as an instructor, try to improve upon that? How do I get them to hear what it is I want them to hear? And I'm asking you to, how do you do that? How do you get them to hear what you want them to hear? Shut up and communicate. Look at this. This is at the McDonald's in Fredericksburg, Virginia. If you travel up 95 North, take the exit there that goes up to US 1, and there's a McDonald's right there. And this is what the sign says, okay? These doors to remain unlocked during business hours. Now that is etched in the glass on the inside of the door. Why? If I show up to work and I'm selling food, you don't have to tell me to keep the doors unlocked. How do you report back to corporate? Well, the drive-thru is real busy, but nobody's coming in to eat. Well, have you thought about unlocking the door? Really? We gotta unlock. Do you have to tell somebody to keep the place open during business hours?
Well, the janitors.
Maybe, I don't know. It's just crazy to see it on the inside of the door. And this one, now where were you January of 1991? I know some of you weren't born and all that, but if you could remember back to this, it's a CNN poll, January 19, 1991. A major event will happen that day. All right, a major event will happen that day. Was the president right to order the bombing of Iraq? It was the first time we all watched a war on CNN, okay? They had the little cameras there on the bombs and blowing up stuff. And so they did a poll, a call-in poll about 2:30 in the morning. And you pay $1 to call in and give voice your opinion. It costs you $1. So 61% of the people called in at 2:30 in the morning to say, yes, the president was right to bomb Iraq. And 30% called in at 2:30 in the morning and said, no, he wasn't, okay? And then 9% called in to tell them they didn't have an opinion. Do you see there's 2 things wrong with that? Why would you pay $1 to call somebody to give an opinion that you ain't got? I don't understand that. some communication is just wrong, right? Some communication is just wrong. That's just the way it works. You saw that, right? Okay. So what was that? Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that, right? Yeah, okay.
No.
So it was a bird in the bush. Now, most of us are educated folks, and most of us understand how reading works, right? We have eyes, see these images, and all these rods and cones, they flip it all around, runs down that optic nerve right back in there, and your brain tells you what it says, okay? And you all just read it, okay? A bird in the bush, okay? But perception is not concerned with accuracy at all, okay? Perception is not concerned with accuracy at all. Because if you were concerned with accuracy, when you read that statement, you would read it differently. Okay, right? It's a bird in the bush. Well, how come you didn't say that the first time? Because your brain recognizes that that's not supposed to be there. So it just throws it out. And that's how mind works with mathematical equations. It recognizes those letters are not supposed to be there, it just throws them out. So here's the thing. How much of the stuff that you're giving to your students gets thrown out? Yeah, because they don't realize what's important. They don't, it's not their fault. I don't think they're just trying to be, well, some of them are, but most of them are not trying to be complete idiots. You know? I learned this, and I don't know about how it works up here at CVCC and some of your other schools, but I learned this. The best students the parents have at home, they send them to school. They don't keep the good ones at home. They send everything they got to us, and we have to try to figure out how to work with them, but they don't know how to disseminate information. They are not concerned sometimes with reality. Now, I know that those lines are the same. I know they're the same length. I know it. And every time, I swear, when I turn around and look at it, that one on the right is longer than that one on the left. Right? Perception is not concerned with accuracy. How about this? Is it taller than it is wide? I know if you measure, it's the same. But every single time I look at that and turn around, it's taller than it is wide. Why is that? Perception is not concerned with accuracy. And my students have trouble with accuracy. They have enough trouble with accuracy. So I've got to figure out how to make the playing field a little easier for them. How about this? Again, it's the same thing. They're all the same length, but they do not look the same. Now, if we were to pay attention, perception is concerned with integrativeness. Now, I made that word up. All right? I'm not sure if it's a real word, but I made it up. But that's how we put things together. It's how it's all connected. We want it to fit some kind of way. And sometimes we make things up completely that don't go together. But sometimes things work out like they should. Perception is concerned with integrativeness. See, I know you believe you understand what you think I said, okay? But I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant, right? And my students back and forth that all the time about what does he mean and does it mean this thing? And some days I do a much better job of clarifying it for them than I do others. And I need to try to improve on how that works. I know what I said, but I don't know what they heard. And see, that goes back to you and I having that other conversation in our head sometimes. That conversation sometimes supersedes this conversation. And so we have to be very careful with our students that they understand how to differentiate between those two conversations. Because I don't know about you, but I can't grade my students on what they meant to do. Now, maybe you can. But I'd have a student that come and say, now, Mr. Walker, I meant to write this down. Well, I'm sorry. I can't reveal what you meant. I meant to win the lottery, but I didn't. All right? I don't know how to help them get to that point very well yet. And I'm working on it. And I hope maybe through the course of this, we'll kind of figure some things out together. So let me try something else, okay? And we're just going to listen for now. Because sometimes it's hard of listening, isn't it? So I have a piece of paper somewhere that, oh, it's right here, that's yellow, okay? And I'm going to probably need to get my old folks' glasses because that's what happens. You need something to magnify things. So I'm just going to read this, okay? And all you have to do is listen. Rest, tired, dream. Bed, snore, cozy. Relax, pillow, warm, doze, night, and slumber. Now, I read those as best I could in my Southside, Virginia drawl, okay? And so now I just want to ask you a question. If you heard the word rest, would you raise your hand? Oh, good. Most all of you. Great. If you heard the word tired, would you raise your hand? Okay, pretty good. If you heard the word baseball, would you raise your hand? Just one person, okay. If you heard the word snore, raise your hand. Oh, good. All right. If you heard the word aardvark, raise your hand. Oh, the same person. All right. If you heard the word sleep, would you raise your hand? Okay, great. That's pretty good. Now, here's what I'd like for you to do, okay? On that list right there, I'd like for you to point out the word sleep. Okay? No, slumber is not sleep. So, if I didn't say it, how'd you hear it? Yeah, if I didn't say it, how did you hear it?
Association.
Yeah, association. Because it's supposed to be there. It should be there. And because it's not, I'm just going to add it. I'm just going to add it. Yeah, you should have put it there. You got students like that? You should have asked me the question about this. I knew that, right? I knew that. But I didn't know what you were asking, but I knew this. How is that possible? And how do we address that as faculty? Well, I think it's this way.
Before you answer, I have a question.
Yes.
What happens when you, as an instructor, say A, B, and C? You give them a piece of paper that says A, B, and C. You ask them to reiterate it to you, and they say A, B, C. And then when you see in the next period, they will say, oh, you never said A, B, C.
Who wants to help with that? How does that happen in your class? Is she the only one that experiences something like that? I'll tell you what happens in mine. Is we go back to that piece of paper and we say, here is ABC. This is what we did. And I don't know how many times I have to reiterate something to somebody before they catch a hold of what it is we're trying to get. I know as a parent, I got to tell my youngest daughter every single day, she's almost 14 years old, the things that get up, brush your teeth, eat your breakfast, every day. And you would think after whatever, how many 360 days in a year for, the better part of her life, she would figure that out. That we got. So I'm not sure if they don't hear. I'm not sure if they don't understand how you're supposed to put it all together. I'm just not sure. But these are 18 to 28-year-olds that we're dealing with that will say, you didn't say A, B, C, D. And so I wish I had an easy answer for that. I think it has to do, for my class, with buy-in. Because most people, I think, come into a history class probably similar to some of the other classes where they don't see the importance in any of it. So therefore, they don't need to waste a lot of time trying to recall that kind of stuff. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, but I have an X-ray program, and everything that they're doing in that one is going to be what they're going to do when they graduate, and I still have the same problem.
So it's not just that maybe so I don't know if it's underdeveloped. I think a lot of it has to do with social skill sets and try to figure that out. Yes, sir.
Well, I just like to tell my students this is not a gag me with a spoon course. And, I said, you're going to run into it as soon as you get out of here and get a job.
And I guess the faster they figure that out, the better off they'll be. Yes, sir.
I just think that everybody's universe exists on the internet.
That's true.
That's where it is.
Right.
And you never know what the person sitting next to you sees or hears or understands. And we really have to work hard to understand that other universe and just see it and we believe it's true, people know.
That's right.
Can you teach psychology?
No, I don't, I teach graphic design.
But you're right about that, and I think what I find to be troublesome is I can't always get in that universe. I don't have the key that unlocks that sometimes. And I look for it. You know, I think as instructors, we really do. I don't know about you, but I had some terrible teachers when I was in college. They were pitiful. And I'm pretty sure the first year or two I taught, I would like to apologize to the students. Because I did unto them what was done unto me. I didn't know any better. But I like to think I've gotten a little better over the years. And I know that there are teachers who don't want to be bad teachers, but some just are. They don't like their job. They don't invest the energy that it takes. They're not going to come show up to a professional development on a Friday afternoon. They're just not. I understand that. I understand that. But people who do have a desire to be the best that they can be and figure out how to get in that universe. So I appreciate you being here to help us into that. Because we're all in this boat together. When they talk about low enrollment and poor graduation rates, they're not just talking about Southside Virginia when they're talking about it. They're talking about everybody. So we got to figure this thing out as we go through. And we listen. Here we are, many of us sitting in here with PhDs and all kind of advanced degrees, and we still mess things up. So the kids who are coming from a broken home or worried about gas money to school, you know that it's not going to be easy for them. It's not going to be easy for them. When I was in school, I took a communications class because they told me I needed to. And the guy that taught it wore a tweed jacket with little elbow patches on it and smoked a pipe. This was in the day when you could smoke in school. And he smoked a pipe. And he would talk about this, sending this message down a channel and receivers and coding a message. And I'm thinking, who talks like that? Nobody I know does that. Yes?
That was Colin Cherry's definition of communication.
Well, I summed that down to Southside Virginia. All right? This is what I think it means. You got to get the father down where the jackass can eat it. That's what I think communication is about. If you can't communicate in a way that I can understand you, then we don't even begin to have a conversation. You know? Now, I am not calling my students jackasses, all right? But I want you to understand that sometimes you can talk at them, all right? And other times you got to figure out how to talk to them. And this is where I struggle all the time. I struggle with it a lot. And I'm sure in some classes it maybe is a little easier than in others, but this is the way, this is kind of how when I was reading about, okay, how do you take a message and transmit it through space and time? Somebody receives that message. They then decode that message, recode it, send it back to me, and I got to go, no, that's not going to work. All right? That's just too much effort right there. So we got to get it down to where the people we're dealing with can understand it on terms that they recognize. And I think that's where we are. Because communication is a mutual experience. We just talked about that, you did just a moment ago. And I believe communicating with people, it's just like a dance you do, right? You're moving and I'm moving and everybody's having a good time, right? We're dancing around in that talk. I get a little close, you push me away, you know, we dancing. That's how you communicate. It's a back and forth. It's an ebb and flow. Now in my classroom, we have been talking a lot recently about illegal immigration as it relates to the Constitution of the United States and whether or not unborn children have protection guaranteed through the Constitution. And you know, you can argue all day one way or another about it. And I'm not interested necessarily in how my students stand on it politically. What I am interested in is if they can make their argument explicit, factually and educationally and academically explicit. And as long as we keep our conversations on that level, then everything works out fine. But as soon as it becomes an emotional response to something, that conversation is over. Because the way they feel about something is very valid. I can't change the way they feel about it. And so when they bring their own personal emotions into it, somebody starts crying about it or yelling about it, then you know that you got to move on. that conversation is no longer a mutual experience anymore. And so I think that's where we miss sometimes with their students, this concept, this idea of mutual experience. They don't understand how to respond back to us. They assume because I'm the oldest one in the classroom with the tie on that I know everything, and that most of the time they have to agree with me in order to get a passing grade in my class, which is the furthest thing from the truth. But that's the perception that they carry. And remember, perception is not concerned with accuracy, but that's the perception they have. And I don't want them to have that perception, they just do. And it's because we've always been taught, you gotta go along to get along, you know, that kind of thing. And so I think it's this dance that we do. So we do use some kind of medium, right? We do send a message some way. In today's world, we do all this stuff right here, FaceTime, Snapchat, text, all these things. Now, I do not Facebook. I have a Facebook page only because in the summer, people at the Virginia Master Teacher Seminar and other Master Teacher Seminars take pictures and they post them on Facebook and they want everybody to go look at them and like them. I'm not even sure what that means, but they put it up there, okay? So that's the only reason I have a Facebook is to go look at these pictures about twice a year. So I don't communicate over that. And I want you to stop and think, how many times in a day somebody will say to you, I saw on Facebook. Or they ask you, did you see on Facebook? Now my wife will do that to me 3 or 4 times a day, knowing full well I don't look at Facebook. But I guess she thinks I'm going to jump into the 21st century at some point in my life. I don't know. All right, but we have different ways of communicating. We have different ways of communicating. And sometimes if we don't get the right channel or the right medium, people don't understand our method of communicating. For example, if I were to say to you, Merhaba Nessels, your response to me would be what? Yeah, exactly. That's right. Because I chose a medium that I hoped none of you would recognize. It's a possibility that if you were from Ankara, you could answer that. Okay? Because if you were from Ankara, you would say Iyom. So all I have done is ask you how you doing today. And the response would be fine. I chose a medium to communicate with you that you don't understand. And my students don't have access to some of the mediums that we choose to try to communicate with you. So I have to find the right one, the right channel for that particular student, and it's a lot of work. I would like for them to be all on public broadcasting channel 9, but they are not. You know, some of them are over here on Showtime, HBO 505 or something like that, okay? And I'm not. I got to figure out how to get there. When we are talking about doing computer work and communicating on the computer, for example, you understand they are one click away from something they ought not be looking at, right? They are one click away from something that they ought not be looking at. So communication, it gets tangled up for them a lot of times in the mediums in which they choose. And I need to try to do a better job to figure out, okay, this is what this person needs. We all talk about visual learners and kinesthetic learners and what is verbal and all that kind of stuff. That holds true in communicating. We still need to figure out which way that is. Some people can't listen. They don't do very well listening auditory. They would prefer it be written down, communication. How many of you make lists? Are y'all list people? Yeah. I am not a list person. But some days I wish I were, because I can't remember everything I was supposed to do. But I just don't write a list. Now my wife will leave me a list, and that's a different kind of list, all right? You don't skip anything on that list. But I just choose not to write stuff down. And some days it bites me. Sometimes it bites me. But I have students, I have a young lady who will lay ink pens out in color right here. It's like 6 different colors. And she'll take her notes in various colors. And I'm thinking, my God, you are way too organized. Yeah, OC, yes, all right. And so it's, people learn to communicate in different ways. And so she's figured out a way that kind of works for her. It would drive me crazy. That's all I can do to keep up with the one I got, let alone 9 or 10 pens. So if we use the wrong medium, the wrong channel, then we're going to mess that communication up. Now let me show you. People view the world based on their own perceptions, not how the world really is. My perception of the world is very different than somebody who, say, grew up in Falls Church, Virginia. My perception of the world is very different. In my world, where I live right now at Charlotte Courthouse, there's 468 people that live in that town. And to the best of my knowledge, there's only 2 races there, white and black, in town. I cannot think right off the top of my head of anybody else who lives there permanently that's not either African American or white. So my world is very different than somebody in Falls Church. My perception of the world is very different. And my students' perception is limited in that regard. So trying to communicate to someone in that realm is sometimes very difficult because it is based on our perception. For example, what do you see? What do you see there?
I see them.
You do see them both?
Yeah.
You see what?
You see both of them or just one?
I see one lady with a bonnet.
You see a lady with a bonnet? An old lady?
No,
A young lady?
yeah,
Okay.
and she has a choker on her neck.
Has a choker on her neck? Could that be the mouth of the old lady?
Where's the old lady?
The old lady? See her nose?
On the face.
Which looking lady?
I don't see, I see one lady.
That's all there's done.
That just reiterates what we're talking about, right? It's perception.
Oh,
It's your perception.
no.
That's all right, let me try another. Let's try another. What do you see right there? Try another.
I don't see nothing.
Talk among yourselves at your table, see if you can figure out what that is. I'll give you about 38 seconds.
It's a dog.
You squinting all over that? They squinting all over. Nothing but a blob. Well, they said it's a map because that's Spain and Portugal. Oh, a foot right there. So it's one of those. You see the foot? What's
I
that
see a
called?
foot.
Sonogram thing? Yeah. No, that's not it. All right, so perception, right? That's what we're talking about, okay? So let me see if I can help you, okay? Let me see if I can help you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, check it out. Now, now if you're not sure what it is, let me help you
That's
again.
a cow.
Okay?
Whatever it is.
All right, now you ready?
Yeah.
We're gonna go back, okay? You ready? Do you see it now?
Yes.
Oh, get out. Y'all see it? I see it. Y'all can see it, Teresa? I see that one. Okay, I'm excited. Can I show that one?
Yes.
See right here, see the eyes?
Eyes, nose.
See it now. Oh, I would have that.
But now when you look at it, you see it. Because your perception has been changed. Your perception has been changed.
Can you go back to the old lady?
I can. Let me go back to the old lady.
I don't see
Your perception. Okay, so the young lady, is this an eyelash for the young lady? Right here? Is that her eyelash?
Okay.
And her nose?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well
And
this is
it's a
the
profile.
old lady's profile right here. That's the old lady's eye, and this is her nose and chin. Her head is bent down. This is a little shawl or something over her head.
She's looking down.
She's looking down.
The chin is the
Oh,
nose.
that is so special.
You
She
see it?
looks like the Grinch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see that?
Wow.
See, when you change people's perception, you can open up their educational
That's
opportunities.
special.
Okay? And that's all we're doing here. You see it now. But you swore a minute ago there was nothing there really, right? But when you get a little help, we start to notice things, okay? And so we notice now, oh, there it is. Okay? All that is, and my wife, I thought I married a rich woman. Let me just tell you. Because I was trying to marry for money. Okay? Now, I'm not going to be honest with you, all right? You know, you can love a poor person, but you love a rich one just as easy, all right? And so, my wife's father owned a dairy farm, about 700 acres. I said, oh, that's nice. Little did I know it was 700 acres worth of debt and work that I didn't want to be involved in. No, he had a dairy farm, got a picture of the cow, ran it off on a copy machine. That's where that came from. Right? But so all you got to do first is find somebody's got a dairy farm and you can go take a picture of that, take care of that. But that's what that is. But see, my job as an instructor is to change the perception of my students. Because they come in to me and they don't even know what they want when they get there. Some of them are there because mom and dad said they had to come. Some are there because they don't want to go to jail, right? They got to do something with their life. Others are there trying to find themselves, all right? Did you ever find yourself? How long are you still looking for yourself? Yeah. When I grow up, I want to be. Yeah, that's where I am in my life right now. I have to try to change the perception of my students. Not every person they meet is going to grow up in a town of 400 people where the racial makeup is about 50% white and black. It's just not going to happen. The world is not that way anymore. Our chunk of the world is. But when they get in the car and drive an hour any direction, they're going to meet other things that they are not familiar with. And it's my job to prepare them to understand how to cope with that, to change their perception as a classroom instructor. I use history just to keep score. That's all that's about. There are a few things that they need to know, but mainly they need to know how to take what this world gives them and use it to their advantage. That's what my job is. You know, you just have to figure that out. And so trying to figure out a way to communicate with them is what I'll do. And sometimes you can't say exactly what you mean. You have to say something kind of like what you mean. Now, my mama was very good at that. She often would say something like what she meant and never really exactly what she meant. Now, I'll give you some examples. When we were growing up, there was a kid in the neighborhood who I asked my mama about it. I said, Mama, what is wrong with James? She said, James is a little slow. Now, I'm 10, 11 years old, and I'm thinking, that's not right. He can outrun everybody in this town. He's the fastest boy I've ever seen. But that's not what she talked about. Or she would say something like, Lord, son, I've been busy as a bee today. Or I've been working like a dog. Right? You heard people say that? And then 10 minutes later, boy, you lazy as a dog. Is that the same dog? I mean, what are we talking about?